Good evening, viewers. Guyanese, I'm very pleased to update you on the recent development in the High Court where the Chief Justice would have ruled in relation to the matter that was brought before the High Court. In those rulings today, she has clarified and made explicitly clear a number of issues. We in the People's Progressive Party Civic, we welcome the ruling, and we are saddened that although the ruling was clear and pointed to the many examples in which issues that was raised in this case were already dealt with at the Court of Appeal and at the CCJ, that associates of the APNU-AFC are continuing their delay tactics. The delay tactics in denying our country the stability that it so badly requires as we seek to tackle the issue of COVID-19, the serious economic circumstances that we are facing, and the financial difficulty, not only at the central government level, but also in the private sector. These actions, of course, continue to destabilize our country, continue to add burden on our citizens, continue to have Guyana viewed at differently internationally. But what we have seen is a consistent effort by APNU-AFC leaders in delaying the swearing in of the new government and in delaying the will of the people. However, we are very pleased today that the Chief Justice has addressed the issues once more. As I speak to you this evening, our country is also faced with many challenges on the international stage. We have already seen sanctions being imposed at the personal level on government functionaries. But we know as they continue to delay the declaration, as they continue to find ways in delaying the declaration, which affects the democratic will of the people, that those sanctions are going to get stronger and stronger, and all aspects of life here in Guyana will be affected. We have called upon the government to act selflessly and not selfishly. Act in the national interest. Act in the interest of the citizens. In 2015, after the elections, we in the PPP sought to be a disciplined opposition. We sought to be an opposition that would continue to struggle and represent the rights and interests of people. An opposition that would continue to be committed to the task of national development and nation building. And it is for that reason we remained viable, we remained relevant, and we remained consistently in contact with the Guyanese people, representing their interests, all of which resulted in a victory for the People's Progressive Party Civic in the just concluded elections. We cannot overstate the call to this government to act in a responsible manner. to act in the interests of the people of this country, to act with decency and integrity, and to respect the will of the people and to respect the rulings of the court. It is essential in a modern democracy. It is important in a modern democracy. They cannot continue to expose the entire country. They cannot continue to expose all the citizens of this country to sanctions and the effect of sanctions by their selfish actions, by their unpatriotic action. I've already made it very clear that I intend to lead a government that not only will work in the interests of every Guyanese, but would ensure that our democratic institutions are strengthened, that would ensure the rights of people are protected, that would ensure our economy works in the interests of all the citizens, all stakeholders, so that all of us can prosper. We cannot continue to have a country that is divided. We cannot continue to have people occupying political space and leadership who are so selfish in their actions that they would rather the entire country suffer for their own selfish reason. That is not what leaders do. And although we are heartened and we welcome the ruling of the Chief Justice, we are very concerned about the continuous action of the APNU-AFC in their delaying tactics. To what end? What is the end game? To what end are they doing this? What do they hope to achieve other than hurting the entire country, other than hurting the entire population? What are their intentions? What do they hope to achieve by this type of selfish action? Of course, nothing can be achieved but damage to our country, our credibility, damage to our investment climate, damage to our economy, and of course our healthcare system, threatened now with COVID-19. So my fellow Guyanese, I ask you, I know I've been calling upon you all the time, to remain calm, remain patient as we draw closer and closer to a position in which this government would recognize that they have no other option but to respect the will of the people, but to respect the ruling of the courts, but to allow democracy to work. Democracy must triumph in the end. We are also very concerned about the approach of this government to our international partners, to our regional partners, who are doing nothing but standing up for democracy, who are doing nothing but standing up for the rule of law, who are doing nothing but standing on the side of justice. What we have seen are immature attacks on these leaders, these institutions, and these countries. It will do nothing for Guyana. It will not help us in any way. It will not help them in any way. But it destroys us as a country and as a people. It destroys our credibility, how people view us. And these things must be of concern to all of us. So my dear Guyanese brothers and sisters, if we are just to go through briefly the questions that the Chief Justice would have put to herself and would have answered in her judgment based on the arguments, based on the filings of the different parties. The first thing was whether the court had the jurisdiction to hear the application. The Chief Justice made it very clear that the court had the jurisdiction, although it was limited to public law functions. So the first thing is that the court had the jurisdiction to hear the matter. After answering that question, the second question was, is Section 22 of the Elections Law Amendment Act unconstitutional? The Chief Justice made it very clear that no, the section was valid and was properly used to fashion Order 60. So it is clear that Order 60 was constitutional, the section was valid, and it was used properly in the fashioning of Order 60. That is the order that gave birth to the recount exercise. She went on to say, in any event, the issue of constitutionality was already decided on by the Court of Appeal in Moore, and consideration of its validity is for an election petition. So here is it, that this issue that was brought to the Chief Justice in the High Court was already dealt with, and the Chief Justice pointed to that. Yet, although the Chief Justice would have pointed this out, although the Chief Justice would have pointed to where it was dealt with by the various courts, we have seen that the APNU-AFC, a candidate for the APNU-AFC, Roysdale Ford, has made it very clear his intention, or their intention, to appeal, although the Chief Justice made it so clear. The third question was, should a March 13th declaration by Mingo be set aside for the recount numbers? So the whole issue of the Mingo numbers, you would recall that Lowenfield submitted the Mingo declaration in his last report to the chair. And this is what the court ruled. GCOM decided with the concurrence of Mr. Granger and Mr. Jagdale to undertake a recount. And once done, it was for GCOM to decide, and it decided the March 13 declaration would be set aside. So here is it that the Chief Justice is making it very clear that it was for GCOM to decide, the chair and the commissioners, not Lowenfield. In one section, whilst the Chief Justice was making her ruling, she referred to him and said he cannot act like a lone ranger, like he is not subjected to any law or direction. She made it very clear that a constitutional body is the commission, which is made up of the chair and the commissioners, and GCOM is bounded to act by the direction of the commission. And we know what the instructions are. The chair instructions in writing is clear. The instructions to Lowenfield is to bring the report in accordance with the recount numbers. So the Chief Justice has made it very clear here that the letter of the chair has to be respected, has to be followed, and that is the direction of the commission which Lowenfield has to follow. That is the constitutional body. Lowenfield is not a law unto his own. He's not a lone ranger. He does not own the process. He is just an officer performing duties to the constitutional body, which is the commission. So the court made it very clear that those declarations are overtaken. And it is a recount figure we're dealing with. Then the whole issue of res judicata. Of course, the Chief Justice made it very clear that many of the issues, many of the relief sought in the application were already dealt with by the appeal court and the apex court, the CCJ. And in listening to her, you will understand that this application is just wasting judicial time. That is why the Chief Justice even said she's lenient when it comes to costs in relation to these national interest issues. But on this occasion, she asked for submissions in relation to costs. She referred to some of the arguments as hopelessly flawed. But what we see, what is the response? The response, of course, by the APNU-AFC is to continue this delaying tactic. And as I said before, the question is, to what end? The court was clear that Lowenfield, as CEO, was subject to the direction of GCOM. So Mr. Lowenfield can no longer believe. I hope it is clear enough for him now that Lowenfield, as CEO, was subject to the direction of GCOM, pursuant to Section 18 of the Elections Law Amendment Act. The CEO was bound to follow the directions of GCOM, of the Commission. And those directions were given very clearly. Those directions were given very clearly by the chair. And if he has issues with the direction, he cannot take it upon himself to decide how he will interpret the direction or what he will produce in relation to the direction. No. He has to address that through an elections petition. This was also made clear by the court. This means that the decision in this case have already been determined, and this, what we have seen here by the APNU-AFC, are just delaying tactics. As I said, to what end? Who gets hurt? Who is damaged the most in this process? It is the people of this country. It is this country. It is our investment climate. It is our economy. So, fellow Guyanese, as I said, we have to remain patient. The Chief Justice stressed the importance of the closure of this issue and highlighted the similarity in the cases that came before and this case, to emphasize that the court cannot be used as an avenue to delay the democratic will of the people. And the end of all this must come very quickly. And even after all of that, we heard the move by the candidate of the APNU-AFC, Roysdale Ford, to continue on with their delaying tactics. So, fellow Guyanese, I ask that you remain patient. I assure you that democracy will triumph. There is not much more room they can wiggle out from in denying you your rights. And let me say this to APNU-AFC supporters. This is about all of us. This is about the livelihood of all of us. This country belongs to all of us. And we must take an equal stand. We must take a conscious position when it comes to our country, when it comes to democracy and the rule of law. So I assure all of Guyana that we will continue our efforts in bringing this to an end very quickly. We'll continue to seek the best representation. And I want to take some time to thank all our lawyers, all the researchers, all those who supported this case, our international partners, our regional partners, our diplomatic community, CARICOM, the private sector, civil society. I want to thank all of you for your continued support, for your continued interest and pressure in bringing this elections to a conclusion with the will of the people triumphing in the end. And the will of the people is not only about electing a government, but the will of the people is in electing and supporting a government that, in their belief, would do the best for Guyana. To all of you who continue, all our supporters, our leaders, their families, to all of you, we continue to be thankful. And all of this is making us even more resolute in our commitment that we cannot disappoint you. We cannot fail you or this country. Your belief in us, you standing up for what is right, gives us added motivation and energy. Don't be disheartened that they're going to the Court of Appeal again. Justice will prevail. Victory is not about winning the cases. Victory is about winning what is best for Guyana. Victory is about bringing back stability to our country. Victory is about bringing back our country out of the crisis it finds itself in. Victory is about building a country for all of us as one people, one nation, one destiny. I thank you. Continue to stay safe. God bless you and your family. All of you and your families, God bless you. Thank you very much.